Well, hi, Dr. Darria. Thank you so much for joining us again. It's so good to see you.
Hi, Ashley. It's lovely to see your smiling face across Zoom since we can't be in person.
It's really awesome when I get to connect again with a past guest, especially one like yourself that's so fun to talk to because I feel like I'm seeing a friend.
I know. I was going to say that. It's like seeing an old friend. So hi. Hi, friend.
I love it. Well, we were so, what's the word? I guess blessed. That's the word I can think of with the information that you gave us last time about just how to navigate this time and stay resilient and keep in touch with our kids. And here we are again, pivoting into a new season under coronavirus, which is back to school. So I know that you have already been doing a series in your newsletter that I get monthly. That's so great. That I hope that all our viewers are getting. But I kind of wanted to just kind of get, first of all, we'll just start it off with the question that is, unfortunately, like you've mentioned, it's very polarizing. What do we do? What is the best way to find out what's best for our kids when going back to school? Virtual classroom?
Right. So Ashley, this is a tough question. I mean, my kids are 6 and 3. This is a question that I'm thinking about, and I'm actually working with a number of schools to help them make these decisions for their own students. So I would say for every parent out there, like for one, I feel you because this is hard, and 2, you're going to make the right decision. I mean, no matter what decision we make as parents, people will question them. So make what is right for you and your family. Go with that gut. And, most schools are or if you are given a choice, they let you change every 2 weeks or every 4 weeks. Go with what you think is right now. We have to make decisions with incomplete information. So just putting that out there for all parents. I hope that helps the anxiety a little bit. I know as parents, worrying is our sport. So then I would say, then you have to look at some specific questions. So for one, look at your child. Does your child or does anybody in your family have something that makes them at higher risk from COVID? Maybe it's asthma or obesity or some other chronic condition, diabetes, something like that. Look first, because if they do, then you know what? Go virtual for the first couple of weeks. That's okay. Just elect to do that. That's fine. Schools need a group of people to be virtual anyways, because if schools have any hope of creating distance, they need some people who are home and virtual. So go virtual. If in doubt, do that. It's not a problem. Secondly, now if you say, I think my child and my family is healthy enough, we could try to go to school. Now I want you to look at 3 things for your school. I call them my 3 keystones of schools decisions for right now. One is, do they have a plan to say, here's how we're going to reduce the number of COVID coming into the school? And that is, are they doing symptom checkers? Are they having people be tested? Are they making kind of a community contract where they say, as a community, we're asking all of you as parents to decrease the number of things that you normally do. Don't go out to bars. Don't live as if COVID doesn't exist. That's how we can decrease COVID from walking in. 2 is, what's their plan for decreasing transmission? And we can go into each of these as you wish. And 3rd is, how are they going to isolate, rapidly identify, and quarantine? And what is their plan? If they have to have a plan for all 3 of those. If not, you need to start pushing back on it.
Okay, that's great. So a parent can even call their school and talk to them and ask them what the precautions that they're making. One of the things going right into what we're speaking about is, how do you prepare your child for transitioning into this? And I'd love to start with the virtual, and then we can go with the classroom. And the reason why I want to bring up preparation for virtual is because I don't really hear anyone talking about that. Like, here we are in the summer, and here we are trying to find things to do, giving our kids a break from what they came out of, which was a very interrupted end of their school year. Right. Now we got to adjust back into that new school year. So do you have any recommendations on how to help our kids transition even into that when it comes to a virtual learning experience?
Yeah, absolutely. I think some logistics ones are kind of the same guidance I give parents who are trying to work from home, is help your child have some boundaries, because now all of a sudden for your child, work, i.e. school, and home are the same place, and they can all get mixed up, and that can make it very difficult. It makes it more stressful. So let your child have a very designated spot. This is where you do your virtual school, whatever it is, whether it's in their desk in their room, or a corner of the dining room table, whatever you have, let them have a designated spot with their paper and their pencils and kind of set up their locker equivalent. So they have a learning spot. And number 2 is kind of have a ritual for the beginning of the school day. School's now starting. We're going to do our things. And school is over. Many kids are used to a bell or something. You put a bell and do it. You do you. Make this fun. But have a ritual for the beginning and end. And I think it's important, no matter what you're doing with your child, is to have a discussion with our kids that this year is going to be different. It's not what we're used to. There are weird things, virtual. There's wearing masks, and we can talk about that too. We definitely have to.
Yeah.
It's not forever. This is not forever. It might be for the full year. I think there's a good chance that we're going to have some uncertainty for the full year, but this is not forever. So tell your kids that, let them air their concerns about it, because kids will surprise you, and something you thought they may be worried about, they may not care. And there may be something that you hadn't even thought about that you could address if you knew it. Just need to listen to them.
After the break, Dr. Darria helps us navigate this very different school year. Let's continue with our back to school special now. And then going into the classroom, obviously school supplies are different. Not only do we have notebooks and pens and folders, we have masks, we have hand sanitizer. Let's go over that. Let's go over how to prep for classroom learning as a doctor.
Yes. So number 1 thing parents need to be doing right now is getting your kids accustomed to wearing a mask.
Yes.
Because, and when I said the 3 kind of keystones, the second one is, what are the schools doing for transmission to reduce transmission? And we didn't dive into it, but one of the key things is universal masking. If your school doesn't have that policy in place, then unless you truly have very little COVID in your community, you're going to have outbreaks. So universal masking, distancing, and small cohorting are some of the most important things there. But masking is a skill. It takes time. It's, just to be able to tolerate it and then also to not be touching at things. So I actually created a guide the other day because I realized all these parents needed it. So it's a guide. You can find it on my Instagram page. And maybe Ashley, I'll give you the link so you can just share it with people. And it's just a guide to help you know how to talk to your kids about masks, where to find masks, the kinds of masks to use, and then a step-by-step, day 1 through day, either 7 to 20 days, depending on your kid, to get them to the point where they forget they're wearing a mask. And we have to do this. Just all the parents listening, please listen to this. All teachers who are listening, please share this guide with your students, because we can't expect our teachers to teach masking on day 1.
Right. Yeah, that's important. Now, what about things like hand sanitizers and Clorox wipes? Are kids expected to bring those to the classroom, or is that something that you've heard classrooms are providing?
It really depends on the school. So this is when you need to ask your school, what are they doing? Ideally schools aren't having shared crayons and markers and pencils and surfaces as much as possible. So to the extent that parents can provide that for their own children, I would send your child with some hand sanitizer. I don't know if you're going to send them with some Clorox wipes. Depending on the age of your child, my child would probably try to sniff them or blow their nose in their Clorox wipes. Not a good idea. But send them with some sanitizer. That's not a bad idea. And talk to your kids. Make sure your kids really know how to wash their hands well. So you can send them with those, and then any of their own items so that they're sharing fewer items with other classmates.
I know that you had a whole thing about how to wear your mask. This is not a mask. It's a shin guard. No one's saying.
Exactly. And that's exactly what my guide is getting them used to it, because kids, after they get used to it, will get to the point that most of them will forget they're wearing it. So we have kids get picked up from school and the mom has to say, hey, take off your mask. And the kid's like, oh yeah, I forgot I was wearing it. You want your child to be there before they start school so that they're not distracted by the mask and so that they're not risking infecting themselves or others. A parent's attitude about masks, whether they doubt it, whether they believe in it, whether they're anxious about it, is going to be their child's attitude. So you have to talk to your children in a really non-judgmental way about it. Just say, this is something that we're doing this year. It's kind of like seatbelt. It's kind of like the car seat. I mean, my kids don't want to ride in a car seat either. This is something we just have to do this year. Again, it's not permanent. I'm doing it, you're doing it. And when you're having your child go through my mask wearing guide that I created, one of the things I say is, when they're wearing the mask, you should be wearing a mask as well. And you really want to do that for a while. That way you find what fits you and what fits them. So you have plenty of masks, because there's enough to worry about when school starts. You don't need to be worrying about masking.
Right. And I think also emulating a good attitude, not just about masks, but about going back to school, going back to learning in any way that is. I think that could be really helpful.
I think it's so true. If you have anxiety about it, talk to your friends about it, talk to your partner about it. Do your best not to let your kids see it, because we want them to be able to see this year a clean slate.
Yes, and it will be a good year for our kids. It'll be a good year for all of us.
And can I say one other thing I want us to do is I want, instead of, so many people are talking about, our poor children, they don't get to have prom, they don't get to have this or that, this year is gonna be so awful, and there's this like gnashing of teeth. That doesn't help them. We need to start doing things to say, okay, I want us to all start looking for what are unique things that we could do this year because of the virtual or the hybrid environment that we could never have done before. So we're talking to some youth sports organizations that, they're going to get all the regional youth kids together that do soccer, and then maybe get some pro soccer player to do a virtual Zoom, tutoring them on how to dribble a soccer ball. I mean, there's some cool things we could do. Let's start looking for that. Change our perspective. It's what we need, and it's what our kids need.
Yes, and I like that. Let's change our perspective and say it to where we're not focusing on what we don't have and what we can't do, but more like, oh, look what we can do. Look who we can talk to.
Yes, exactly.
I love it. Well, thank you, Dr. Darria. I think this will be really encouraging for all of us, people who work in the schools, people whose kids are going back to school. And like I said, we'll start the fall off successfully.
Excellent. We can do it. We've got this. Yes.
Thank you so much, Dr. Darria. I really appreciate you giving us your time.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ashley.